11 on that clock.
Time to go.
Right.
All right. Okay, it's now 6:30 and we have quorum, so I can open the meeting. Oh. Who was it that nominated me?
Who did that to you?
That's funny.
Okay,
So we're going to have the minutes at the next meeting.
Yeah, we'll do 2 sets at the next
Right.
meeting.
So the first order of business is budget calendar update.
If we pass around just an updated calendar, there's a few dates near the end that we just slightly moved around to fit within the schedule for public hearings and those things, so everything works out. And then compared to the last one, I made a couple small revisions. I moved police department EMS up to the next meeting instead of the one after that, because the police chief will be on vacation. And then I also added recreation to that one. They're
Thank
part of
you.
the admin budget that we would be talking about tonight, but they have a rec meeting tonight, so he will be able to come to the next one. We'll do that. Other than that, I think it's really the same, and unless we have any.
There's 2 things. So on January 18th or 19th, it can be a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday. And what's better for everybody? Tuesday, the 18th.
What was that?
Wednesday, the 18th, or Thursday, the 19th.
For me, Thursday's better.
For me as well.
It is.
Yeah,
So
Thursday,
Thursday, the
Thursday
19th?
it is.
What are we talking about?
the January 18th or 19th.
Oh, January.
January. And then there was the question about the budget discussion with the select board on Tuesday, February 7th. Should that be the committee as a whole or a representative?
Yeah, that's something the committee can talk about, but that meeting will be a meeting to the select board to kind of just go over what the final budget is that we'll be presenting at the public hearing.
It'll be a joint meeting, both
Discussion.
committees.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a normally scheduled select board meeting night, so we figured we'd just have either the entire budget committee or a representative of the budget committee, and the committee can decide how they would like to be.
And that decision doesn't have to be done yet.
So the next thing on the agenda is the regional organization subcommittee.
Yes, we need to know who is going to be on that subcommittee, so as soon as Chantel is back from her honeymoon, she can. You're on.
I'd like to be. I'll be on. Mike always likes to do.
Yeah, he
Where
was
is
talking about that last.
And is it generally just the 3 of you?
Yeah, okay. Mike not coming tonight? Or is he just late?
We don't know.
When do the regional organizations generally submit their requests?
They were due on October 15th.
Oh, they're already due.
They should already be in and waiting for Chantel to get back from her honeymoon. And then she'll,
Well, we have priorities.
we do. And then I'll give her the names and she'll get together with the subcommittee to work that out.
And she generally gives us each a packet. The ones that are huge. Too much.
And I expect she'll reach out to you by email and figure out good dates to meet. So,
The next thing is the town manager's budget presentation. Administrative budget review.
So we put out a draft budget that you guys should have received. Just to give you a little bit of process, I don't know what had been done in the past, but I had,
This,
yeah,
I hope. Okay. I'm not. Going to.
I had charged you know, my department heads to put their budget together, got them to me. I went through it, looked at them, made some highlights and notes, and we got back together. I sat down with each department head. We went through and made some changes. Last week, me and Elise went through it, and we pretty much just went through everything, but there were a few slight modifications. So this is, I'm gonna call it draft one. We put it out. We're gonna continue working on some areas of the budget, and then, of course, having discussions with the budget committee. We'll look into some numbers a little bit more. Nothing I'm gonna highlight tonight, but there's a few places we're looking at. One of the ones that come to mind comes from the police budget, where we have a one-time fee for the prosecutor coming up, and it'll be in the budget that you see, but we're really looking at paying for that this year, so we can pull it out of the budget as we get a little bit later. And there's a couple items through there that we're looking at
Is the prosecutor fee an annual one or?
we do have
Is
an
it
annual
quarterly?
ongoing fee, but there's, through the transition and with things happening, there's a one-time fee this year that doesn't have to be paid every year. So
Now, that's as a result of the prosecutor rotating through the different departments, correct? And this is the Enfield's turn to host.
well, it's not really Enfield's turn. Hanover's done it since the beginning of time, and they finally said, you know what, we're done. And we stepped up and said, you know, we'll take it on for a while.
Oh, for a while. So it may be more than 1 year.
Yeah, I hope so, because we're gonna be putting quite a bit of work into setting up different funds and different things to run it properly.
So I'll tell the MFAC that they need to find an office for this guy.
No, he won't be here.
He won't be
just
here.
Run the finances, and
Okay.
they work out of their own attorney's office.
I see.
So, no, we're good that way, but we do have some fees like that. There's a
Right.
phone system that we had looked at paying for over multiple years, and we're gonna look at that to see if we can pay for it, kind of drawing it out. Some of those managerial type things, but anyway, what I'm really trying to get to is, you know, this is a draft budget. I think it's a really good start, doing some quick numbers in the back, looking at the differences. If you look at the back numbers, there's a real big fee because we put 2 buildings in there last year. But if you take those out and the encumbrances, the difference in the budget right now is looking at about an increase of 4.6%. And as we whittle that, hopefully we can get that down a little bit. And there is some places.
Includes the 5% or
5%
something.
increase in salaries and a few other changes that we'll go through. So I don't think it's a bad starting point at this point. We do have a lot of discussions and things to talk about as we move through. I thought it was gonna be worse, just to let you know that. We're looking at 34% increases in salt, huge increases in fuel. Those are really big expenditures, and to be able to come out on the other end of the first draft at 4.6%, I think we have a good starting point.
That's really good.
So with that, we printed out this little cheat sheet that we gave you tonight on the front. It's just highlights from the administrative budget, so we're not going line by line through every page of the administrative budgets. Just wanted to highlight some things in there. So if we start just with that first page under executive, the first line's internet. As you can see, last year's budget was 3,500. This year we have 19,000 in there. That is a placeholder. We're talking with Civic Plus, our website designer, about a website upgrade. We got a number he threw out real quickly in the beginning of about $15,000. So we put a placeholder in there, and we're going to be having another meeting with him soon to finalize kind of where we're at and what that price point would look like before we decide if that's what we want to do or not. But going through this, we did find that our website is very out of date, and there's a lot of tools that they have now that could really streamline things and make our website a lot better and a lot more user friendly. So we will be looking at that. I
Do you
highlighted
know
the
how many
trail.
people use the website?
We could pull the data. We didn't
I'm just curious,
pull it right now, but
because I asked questions about town, and I just never think, and this is my age speaking. I just never think of going to the website. And I don't know how many people do.
You can sign up to and subscribe to notices and alerts, so you can get the news just right to your email inbox.
Just
Very
get enough
convenient, and it will
stuff
remind
coming
you.
to my email.
You can pick and choose the important things to you. You don't have
Thank
to go for
Yeah.
everything.
And we can look at the data, but it does get
You know,
quite a
that's
bit of use.
overwhelming
And we
to me.
drive everybody there through our Facebook pages and everything gets put there. And,
You ask me about Facebook.
yeah, no, but it does get a lot of use. We could pull the user data. If
I've
we
used it 4 times today.
Yeah.
And I admit to looking at it when I'm looking for a meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I want to get to the library. But
I use it a lot and I absolutely agree that it needs to be updated, streamlined.
Yeah, it does that. The new one has, this is antiquated computer stuff, but it has a form builder on it, so all of our applications and things can be built right on there with easy submit buttons. And so there's a lot of things that I think would make it a lot more administratively friendly, along with more user friendly.
Who do you define within the personnel as our webmaster? Among other hats.
Right.
She wears them all, and then we all take a little piece of each of them.
I think it would help her job tremendously if we had a more modernized website.
No, I think so
Oh, I
too,
agree.
and it'll,
The other side of that though is the school district's done it, updated theirs 4 times, and every time they update it, it's less user friendly. Because it's harder to find things.
Like
It can
everything
be.
is done by committee.
Yeah, it's like every time they've changed where, I want to get to the school board. Well, you gotta go through this and that to get to, I want to know when the school board meeting is.
Yeah, they have lost some things
Yeah,
on that.
I like how you can just click on the calendar on the date and.
well, that's why I
It all
like
comes up.
ours is that's 90% of the time it's you clicking on the calendar because you want to know when your meeting is.
Right,
That's right. I
and,
agree.
other events too.
yeah, and they have some neat new ones that have the whole calendar, but then it lists out like the next 5 events or something.
Right.
So it's really easy, user friendly on the.
I like the idea that committees might drop their notes into their own corner, if you will, and
Right.
relieve the whole step of having to submit it to you, and then you've got to drop it in. And that's just,
I'm a big fan of that too.
They ought to
Each
drop in their own
department
minutes.
has their own section that they can put
Exactly.
their stuff in.
and they should drop in their own minutes and be responsible for it.
Mhm.
We will be working on that, but I wanted to highlight that placeholder's there. It's probably not the right fee. It may go up a little, may go down a little, but we're talking about that project for this year. The travel line went up just a little bit. That's the new guy over here. I'm doing a little bit more training. I do plan on going to the ICMA convention next year, so I wanted to make sure that was done right. The executive budget line mostly is reflecting the change that was made last year, raising Elisa's salary and doing that. And then it also incorporates the 5%.
Does the executive budget line include the select board stipends?
No. This is my salary, Elisa's salary.
Okay, on the preliminary budget that Alyssa sent out, I noticed that did not apparently include the 2 new select board members, which will be coming in after town meeting.
It really does not.
One.
No, 2 to.
2 new.
They both could-
Wow, but it's 4, or are we gonna
Five.
fill
That'll be
it out?
five.
It'll be fine.
I thought you
So
did.
you
Can't have an even number.
No.
Well,
If
that's
they're
right.
going to be paid the same amount, we'll have to up that by $6,000.
Well, they could be pro rata. I mean, they're only gonna join in, March, whatever. But that's up to what you determine it to be.
Will they have staggered terms?
Yes.
Okay, well, that,
A 2 and a 3, right? Yeah.
The state laws
State
dictate.
law,
that.
state law
Yeah, they
dictates
do
the 2 and
dictate it.
a 3.
So the next one on elections registration, wanted to point out the postage. Postage continues to go up, getting bulk mailings done. I have been approached by Wendy to discuss doing away with the auto renewals being mailed. She said we can do that electronically, but they're also not getting to people. They're mailing them, and the post office, I don't know what they're doing with them, but they're not making it out.
Post office is in hard shape.
Yeah, they're doing
Well,
They're
no,
very
but
tough shape
still,
right now. Yeah.
auto renewals, you mean people that are out of town?
Automobile.
Yeah, it's the reminder notice.
Your renewal notice will also include your boats and your trailers.
Mhm.
So it's cars, boat and trailers all come on one piece of paper.
Oh.
And if that can be done electronically, that was one of the things I had
Well, we
We're
highlighted.
talking about election.
I'm interested to see that happen. I think that's a
It's
great
in
savings.
Registration.
Registration.
Oh, that was.
So we send them out as a
Yeah.
convenience to people. It's not
I like it.
statutory required or anything. It's nice to get, but it's also $2,000 we're spending and it doesn't seem to be.
When we're printing it, somebody has to stuff the envelope, put postage on it. I mean, that's a pretty good manual chore.
Can you transition?
Well, we
something?
contract that out.
Something to cut out.
So it's something to discuss. It is in the budget right now, but it's something to discuss as we move forward. She has asked not to have to do that and that she could make a list and we could put some stuff out on our sites that, you know, happy birthday, remember, it's time to renew your cars.
So,
I think it's good. If the town clerk says it'll be okay, then I think it should be okay.
Yeah, I mean, it should be your responsibility to know when you have to register your car. Sorry, but
I remember on my
it
birthday
says
every
10
year.
on it, you know? They don't
And
send you one that
license your
says you're gonna
dog.
get it inspected, so.
I like getting the notice, just because then I just pay by mail rather than going to the office, particularly if I'm away.
You can get an email notice and do that.
And that, yeah, so I
Yeah.
would think that if anybody
Yeah,
get
by email.
an email notice, then
You need to, you can
that'd
print
be
it.
sufficient. Except for some people don't have email, but they don't check their mailbox either.
They did, it won't. Okay, under finance, we doubled the computers there in the,
Can we back up if you don't mind? It's not under finance, so I'm back where I was. Under printing on the original draft, there was a question about discontinuing the calendar and editing the annual report to a certain size. I think in both cases, that's a select person's decision,
yeah,
not a budgetary
the select
decision.
board decided last night that we were gonna do the calendar. So
Okay,
that will stay in
Great.
there
terrific.
or need to be
That's
added,
pays for itself, right?
Well,
kind of.
it is primarily, it pays for most of the hard costs of printing and mailing. Not time put into putting it together, but
Maybe we should increase the cost of the ads. I pay one, so I'm willing to pay more.
okay, we'll charge you more.
And was
Well,
the select board in
just think
favor of
that
the edited
calendar is
town
great.
report?
We did talk about cutting some of the stuff out of the town report, but it was also decided that we would mail the warrant to everybody in town, which would be an added cost.
Okay,
We will reflect that as we move forward.
thank you.
On the finance side, like I said, there's just computers. We're working to keep our computers within 5 years of age. We do have one finance computer that's 9 years old now, that's starting to have some problems, so we're gonna upgrade those. You'll see that throughout the budget, but we have done good using our computer budget every year to upgrade and we'll try to get ahead on that. After this year of budgeting, I believe we're gonna be caught up and then we'll just start on an annual rotation.
Do you
of
have a-
computers.
Rotating schedule for computers?
We're working on it. So we've been working to try to catch up. And like I said, this year, we have a lot that are out of date, but we'll get them caught up this year, then everything will be under 5 years old and we can start the rotation.
It's important.
On the reevaluation, I asked her to highlight that just to show that we're holding steady on our contract price and we're not encumbering anything. So we're getting back to normal there. And we'll just be holding that $35,000
Who was that contracted to?
to Norm Bernache to do our assessing.
Okay, so it's still Norm. Okay.
Yes,
Was he ever an employee of the town, or has it always been a contract basis?
Always been common.
contract. Legal services, I highlighted that just to show we dropped it by $2,000 just to be a little bit more in line with what we're doing. And then, so you guys know, you probably know, but we budget them that way, but kind of think of legal services as one line almost. We do keep it separated, but you know, hopefully it's all legal advice and that'll keep us from having to spend legal defense money. You want to go through the personnel administration? This happened today, so.
We just got the new rates from Primex, so the unemployment compensation has gone down. It was budgeted at 600 and change. It's down to 263. It's a small budget, but it's down. Workers' compensation has also been reduced. We had, well, it was 61,271, but we're that seems backwards. Oh, no, I'm getting confused with our property liability, I'm sorry. So yes, we did have it in at 61,000. It's only gonna be 58,667, so that's gone down. Health insurance rates have gone up 11%, but we did increase the employee share by 1% in keeping with the plan that we have in place. 1% a year until the top range is 20%.
And a good reminder there, I mean, 11% is a big jump, but it actually went down last year. So overall, we're up 8% over 2 years, so.
And employer paid retirement for the New Hampshire retirement system, the number is higher. Of course, that incorporates the increase in wages. The rates are reduced as of July 2023. And this year we are actually slated to get 7.5% of the police department New Hampshire retirement funding back from the state.
Because they overcharge?
No,
No,
well,
Legislative.
depends how you think about it. They always paid a portion of it and a few years back, they stopped paying it.
I see.
Right.
This year, the legislature decided to do a one-time reimbursement for that payment. And they're continuing to get pressure from the towns to reinstate that. So it's teacher, police and fire. On our municipal budget, we happen to only have fire, but the school district will give
Police.
them money back as well. Yeah, police. And we don't have fire, but so that's good. And we'll continue working with our legislators to put pressure on them to get that money back. So,
Can I ask, who's the health insurance through?
Health Trust and it's Anthem. So this is the number I was getting it confused with. The next one, the property liability insurance, $61,075. That increased from 56,000. When the numbers were first put in there, there's a maximum amount of 10% that it can go up. But what I did not know at the time is that our actual for 2022 had a premium holiday. So we get a holiday from a certain amount of premium. So our actual cost was reduced by 4,000. We don't know if we'll get another one in another one in 2023. So I've budgeted the full amount, but with any luck, we won't spend it all
Do we bid out our property insurance?
periodically.
And
It's
that-
been a little while.
When was that last bid out? Do you
I
recall?
don't know,
Is it more than 3 years?
probably. I mean, time goes really quickly.
So we're getting-
So,
We're approaching the time where it's probably worthy of consideration.
we switched to Primex about the time that the local government center kind of split up into parts and they got rid of their property liability insurance.
yeah, we can look at it. Primex works a little different than your normal insurance carriers and they're a lot more stable where you know, you bid out and you go to another insurance carrier and you get a low rate for a couple years and then they spike up. Primex doesn't seem to do that as much, but we need to balance that. And it's worthwhile looking around. Most towns too, but the ones that switch usually end up coming right back.
You know, most of us are advised to consider looking at our insurance policies about every 3 years.
Yeah.
I think it's an appropriate timeline also to consider it for a large policy like this.
Yeah, that's just where I say we need to look at, you know, Primex is put together to serve municipalities. They're not a private insurance company that goes out. So they're a little bit different, but it's worth looking at.
Yeah.
But I would also caution against leaving for a few bucks. It's-
No, not for a few dollars, no,
No.
obviously, no. But
So, but it's worth it. I
Keeps
mean, if we
people
have
on
an
their toes.
RFP, we can release it sometime before next year. And
You know, especially if you're gonna have $11 million worth of property. coming
new property,
on.
exactly, exactly. And that's obviously a pretty good,
Yeah.
amount of property to insure at a fairly low value because
Cause it's on.
they're brand new. So it'll actually make our account, if you will, look fairly attractive.
so I highlighted the cable access channel. We put that the same, but I have heard that we're gonna get a concern at the select board meeting, just like we did last year, that
No,
people.
no. I sent you the 30. We'll be looking to get the same.
Yeah, but I've had someone else talk to me saying they're
Oh.
gonna ask for that to be removed from the budget,
Oh, okay.
just to highlight. so
That's
you
okay.
guys know.
You can. that's
Because it's
okay.
a revenue offsetting expense.
Didn't know this person didn't think it, we got our money for it. So,
Yeah.
I see. Oh, so it was a question on whether to maintain the cable access channel at all.
yeah.
Right.
My only question of it, and it may be budgetary, is that I wonder whether anybody ever looked at the amount of money actually going to Comcast and whether we're getting it. You know, I see the monthly bill and there's a certain amount which they take, but who audits that? Who says that they're actually, I'm sorry, Comcast, sending us the right amount of money?
Well, it's through our franchise agreement.
Right.
But who looks at that? You know, you
It's
begin
not-
to wonder if you take the total number of residents who might have cable
It's not
contracts.
based on your bill and how much you pay Comcast and how much they give us. It's I mean, that part is based on how much they give out total, not for Enfield.
Right.
Enfield's portion is based on our franchise agreement that's signed with them of how much they will give us every year. And they do give us that amount every year.
Not based on what they collect from each of us as individuals.
No. They take that money as a whole. And then it's negotiated out and they bring
What's
that
the whole?
fee
Is it
over.
New
The hole's
Hampshire?
over 60,000, at least it has been.
Is it New
The
Hampshire?
total amount that we get in
Or
revenue.
what's the,
Right.
what
About double.
defines the
It's
whole?
about double this.
So they may be collecting twice as much as this budget.
Oh, the
From
town,
Enfield
no, the
residents.
town is getting $60,000 is what I'm saying,
Right.
as revenue. The cable access is only taking 30 of it.
Oh, that was my question.
Yeah,
And-
which was set up by the select board, because the select board had the ability to put the percentage on it when we started with cable access. Now, the thing about this is, you're right, the money's coming from Comcast subscribers.
Mhm.
That's going to the town. I mean, the first thing I would do if you said get rid of cable access, the second thing I would do is go to the select board and say, well, then why should Comcast subscribers be paying it? If nobody else is.
Mhm.
I mean, we've got First Light, who's got their stuff here for free. Even better than that, they're subbing out to Hub 66. Their equipment up here that they're getting for free. So, yeah, I mean, I would have no problem, but if you cut cable access, ETV's budget, then ETV would be able to say to Comcast, well, there's no cable access anymore. So I don't know why you should be charging Comcast to the subscribers. So then the town would lose $60,000 rather than the 30,000 that they're paying.
You know,
Yeah, so I just wanted to highlight it because someone came to me
I know who
saying
it
they
is.
were gonna come to the select board again, so. I just wanted to let you know. Animal control, again, we're budgeting 0 because we're handling that in-house, the police department's doing it now, so that's pretty simple, but thought it was worth a mention.
What does animal control cover?
I think it's
Dog license.
yes, anything when we get calls on
Stray
animals, or
dogs.
they have to deal with stray dogs, take care of
Nuisance.
nuisance animals.
Who
Not
buy
crapping
that?
my woodchucks.
No, They don't do
We don't-
wildlife.
No one.
They do have the number for fish and game
I
though.
was gonna say, I think they assist by helping you get someone that can do it, but.
They give you the phone
I
number.
found it.
Right.
Been through
It
it.
was a police.
Yeah.
He had a deer in the backyard when I called. I gave up calling Fish and Game because you only got a answering machine on the weekend. Police were right there.
Like everybody there understands.
You know, when
Yeah.
the deer was on the ice,
Pardon me.
when the deer was on the ice.
Oh, yeah, that was another incident, and the police took care of both of it. Scott pulled that deer.
Thompson,
Someone, it was Deb Gillespie that called me one morning and said, Shirley, can you see that deer on the ice? It was down, if their front legs get spread, they cannot get up. And so I was on my way to work, but I called the police, and when I came home, I mentioned it at a next meeting or to wonder what happened. And I think it was Steve that was here that said that Scott went out there and pulled the deer to shore and deer took off. So it's fine, but the one we had was one that couldn't, beautiful. Big buck that could not get up in the backyard, had been hit or some animal that, and I went out and I heard this little sound and I saw it, it was alive and alert, and but it could not get up. So I called but they came over and did away with it, and called someone who, they have a list of people who use the meat.
So the next section
some food banks.
the next section I highlighted was a few line items in the public assistance administration, and I just wanted to tie those back. Those are really to having a new employee that he's gonna need to travel a little more to get some training, those types of things. Small increases, but they were still increases. And then I wanted to highlight, I know this was a question last year and it's been talked about, the public assistance direct payments. They're really not being used. I did lower a couple items there, but right now there's a lot of federal assistance out there. A lot of agencies have money, so she's doing a really good job directing people to where they need to go to get help, but it's in a way that we don't have to fund it ourselves, so.
I mean, for example, in 2020 and 2021, the average of those 2 years is $4,900. And we have budgeted 15,100 for next year. I think that's an area where we can certainly consider bringing it back to something closer to what has been expended in those previous 2 years. If you look at 2022, that's an anomaly, obviously, $239. But if you just average the previous 2 years to that, you said $4,900, you'd think you might want to create a budget of somewhere around $5,000.
I'd be careful with that, because those were all COVID years when money was flowing. So I think you'd have to go back.
Money was flowing, but I suspect the need was actually higher.
Yeah, but there was a lot of federal money out there to pay for it, so we didn't have to pay for it.
So they,
So I wouldn't cut it back that far. There may be a little bit more trimming we could do, but it's also one of those areas by law that we have to fund.
Right.
No matter what the budget is.
Right, but we have other places that we can fund it from if something comes up.
No. You fund it from your budget. We're not allowed to move.
Oh, no,
money.
from the budget, but it's not necessarily that category as long as it's.
but it's wonderful that she's directing them to where it's
Yeah.
available.
And we'll continue working on that. So we can look at it. I pulled a few line items down, but just wanted to let you know, it's not that we're not helping people. It's.
No, I don't think it's not that we're not helping people. I just think that there are other opportunities out there for folks to find assistance if needed, and I don't think necessarily needs to be as high as that. We'll look at it.
We pulled the patriotic purposes line down a little bit. We did spend a little more this year and we purchased quite a few flags. So we don't believe we're gonna need as much next year. Old Home Days, we made the decision, we funded that kind of funny the last few years, but we moved that to zero, not that there's no funding, but they have an account that they spend money out of, and then we zero it out at the end of the year, so it's really an offsetting budget expense.
It's never ever come to town funds.
No, so we didn't budget for it, it just, so it looks funny in the budget, but that's really how it works. I highlighted the Conservation Commission professional line, they wanted their budget level funded. I pulled that one down just a little bit. It's not much money, but.
What does the Conservation Trust Fund pay for? I know they have discretion over their own trust fund, unlike some other
Yeah.
areas
Usually they're-
within the municipal government.
It's usually their projects. I know some conservation commissions have used that to buy land and those types of things to put into conservation.
So the question in my mind then becomes why we're contributing to the Conservation Fund if they have a trust fund.
Well, that's kind of how it was set up and worked, that we pay them and whatever's left over goes into that, and then we whittled their budget down, so they put a line to put a minimum amount that goes in every year into their fund.
They're just putting it in the trust fund. They're not spending it.
Well, you never know when you maybe, it could be used for a number of different things that could benefit the town, like watershed management plans that can be used to acquire land to put in conservation. There's many different things that could come up that it could be used for, it'd be very beneficial.
Yeah, in most places, they build and build and build until they have a bigger project to use it on. So debt service, I think that one's pretty self-explanatory, but we have a principal payment of $249,870 and an interest payment of $229,665. Those will be we are making the first payment this year on the public safety building.
Did we pay off per your note, the truck loans listed there?
We have not.
We have not.
So
So
that's something we maybe want to use fund balance for, or something we can have that discussion.
my question is, at those interest rates, which we can't get back to again, that you've put in your note there,
Right.
why are we paying them off?
It was just a
It
suggestion
was a
at the
discussion.
time. It was
Yeah.
a discussion in December 2021.
So
Well,
that is something we don't necessarily have to do, because right now, that's cheap
No.
money.
Right,
No, we don't.
Right.
It does
Yeah,
not.
I
have to
would,
do that.
I agree.
it was back in 20 when.
Yeah, I pulled the notes, it
When
was
it was
back in
2%.
December 7th of 21, when it seemed like a good idea. I'm not faulting that
Right.
committee by any means.
Right.
I think it was a great idea back then.
Right.
But 11 months later,
It's not a good idea anymore.
it's no longer a good idea, and we shouldn't be paying that off. We should continue that loan and use the money listed here for other needs.
Well, it's not in the budget currently,
Okay,
that
Right.
funding. It's not
Yeah, it was
included.
put in there as a note.
Right.
To continue that discussion to see if
Yeah.
it's something someone wanted to do or
Okay.
not.
Right.
And if
Yeah, I
the
agree.
committee is
That's-
opposed to it, we can. take
You're
that
better
right
off
out.
using that for new purchases,
yes.
which is why we've said CIP is only gonna do cash this year. We're not gonna be going with a warrant article.
That's-
We don't think at this point for,
We can borrow money at 3.86%.
right.
So on the capital outlay, I think that's what that's showing. That's what we're highlighting. You know, the discussions we're having right now for capital outlays in the CIP, we're talking cash, not putting it in the budget. And then the payment to capital reserves, I don't want to speak for the CIP committee, but I personally would recommend we move forward, continuing to put that in as planned with the 5% increase. There was a little discussion last year at, you know, where do we draw that line, but with what interest rates have done, moving towards cash purchases, this is exactly what that's for, and I think we continue moving forward.
It's not actually a 5% increase.
5 cents
It's a 5 cent,
Cents.
right,
Adding a
It's a
nickel.
nickel.
which
a nickel.
the math there is 5%.
A nickel raises $26,200. So that's what.
The nickel on the taxes
Yes,
raised 26,
200.
so it's coincidental that it also works out to 5% of the previous year's budget.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah.
Excel did the math for me.
Yeah.
So this one I have a little bit more to talk about, payment to trust. We talked about this when we talked about the audit and our OPEB liability. I wrote down that night that I thought it would be a good idea to have a percentage of our OPEB liability set aside. That's what we do with fund balance. That's what we've done with other things. So having, instead of saying, I think this is enough, I don't think this is enough, let's look at it. I did a little bit of research, not a lot, but a little, and I couldn't really find a rule of thumb out there, if you will, but looking at what we have, we kind of had a discussion that we thought that was good. I think it may be good to set a 5% of our OPEB liability as what we're kind of striving for. Did a little bit of math today, and if we put the 10,000 we're looking at putting in the budget and we use last year's OPEB number, it puts us at 4.2%, which is pretty close. If we wanted to move that to 18,000, we'd be right at the 5%, but I don't think it's something we need to work for that hard, just kind of moving in that direction. Just looking at quick numbers and rounding, you know, with the 30-ish employees we have, that would be about 7 employees leaving at one time. That would cause us to have to use that. So I think it's a fairly safe number. It's maybe a touch on the high side, but I think it's a good round number to aim for. And then instead of every year going, should we put more, should we not put more, we know where we're trying to stay. So I'd like to start moving that way and maybe even draft up a little procedure or policy that that's what we're aiming for, but wanted to bring that to this committee discussion.
The baby boomers have left just about, haven't they? That's
We're
what
just
they're-
getting there.
Yeah.
Shirley.
And we
I
also
mean,
kind
We're
of know
just
that.
getting there.
We know
But I
about
mean,
when people are retiring, so we can
Right.
play that game. But once we get to that 5%, I think it's pretty easy to almost play the backwards game and say, here's what we spent this year. Let's put it back in the budget next year. And so I will work on something for that, but and then capital projects, are you gonna talk about that?
I can. So this is basically the debt service for capital projects. SAG, for Mike, who's not here, is state aid grant. So there is an amortization schedule that has SAG amounts each year. And providing the state continues to fund it, we will continue to use it. But what we do is, when we get the SAG money, we optimize the time to make the payment towards principal. We do an additional payment to principal. We do the timing on the USDA to maximize our payment towards principal versus interest, because they work a little differently. But we do turn around immediately in some cases, so SRF, we can immediately turn around and pay that. And if you go down to the TIF fund, that also has a state aid grant. And that one, the moment it comes in, we cut a check for that amount to principal to get that debt service down faster.
So I wanna highlight that a little, because I think it's been good work by the town office that, you know, the TIF one's paid a little bit different. It's not through USDA, so we pay that as soon as possible when it comes in. One thing they learned over time is if you pay USD at the wrong time, they don't put as much towards principal. So they work with USDA and they find that optimum time to cut the check to get as much principal paid as possible. So a little bit more work on their behalf to time it right, but it definitely benefits the town. And that's
What
really,
this is recovered from Lakeview.
well, Lakeview pays for their whole thing. We're a little bit behind in a few areas, but for the most part, we're ahead of schedule paying that off.
So is the bulk of this cash coming from Lakeview?
It's coming from their fees.
Yes, so everything in the capital projects fund is paid for by the Lakeview and Shaker Landing condos.
Right, and Shaker Lake.
Yes, so they're paying the debt service with the exception of the state aid grant that goes in there.
And then for TIF right now, we've just budgeted the payment to be in there. I just emailed Rob again last week and said, we've got to get a TIF meeting set up because I want to start talking about ways to use that money to benefit the town. We'll be having those discussions and we'll have some sort of plan before the end of budget season. what we'd like to do. I did talk to the select board yesterday about the money that was authorized for sidewalk repair. We didn't do anything this year because we put in the byways grant, and the project we were gonna do was along Main Street with the sidewalk there by Mascoma Lakeside Park. I was hoping to hear from the grant by now, but we haven't. It's the federal government, so hopefully we hear from that and we can use, hopefully we get the grant and we can use those funds to maximize the money and do $1 million project instead of a.
Has the $40,000 that was voted already
Yes.
been borrowed?
Yeah, it's from the TIF fund.
No, the $40,000 that was voted at town meeting has not been borrowed.
It has not yet been borrowed.
We had the authorization to borrow, but we have not done so yet.
Does it make sense to do it now before the rates continue to rise, knowing that this project is going to happen one way or the other next year?
I don't think it's, I wouldn't do it now.
And I don't know that we can either because of the amount that we've already borrowed this year. There are limits to how much you can borrow.
So we'll be doing something next construction season for sure.
Oh, no, I know. And that's why my suggestion to borrow it now at the more favorable rates, but, okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
I'm hoping we get $1 million grant and we can put 40,000 towards our match and be done. So our match will be a little more than that. I don't want to act like our.
Except the 40,000 was also allocated for existing sidewalks, whereas $1
Right.
million doesn't include the existing sidewalks. So we still have the obligation per vote that was held at town meeting
Well, this has
to
been.
do work on the
this has been
existing sidewalk.
Earmarked to do the existing sidewalks by Mascoma Lakeside Park.
Agreed, but the
The
40,000,
40,000 was
was
on
not-
Main Street,
that was not that. That was, 40,000 was Main Street.
across from Town Hall, basically.
Yeah.
That
Oh.
sidewalk there, that's all like this.
So we still have a voter's obligation, because that's what they voted for, and that was what talked
Right.
about at town meeting.
I
Okay,
would, but
So those are two different
they're
projects?
two different, yeah,
They're two different projects.
right,
So 40,000 was voted actually in town meeting of 2020,
right.
so it's gonna be 3 years.
Right.
Just hasn't been done.
Well, and authorization to borrow doesn't mean you have to either. We could pay.
Agreed, but it was listed as.
What I'm saying
as a
is,
project.
that's what I'm saying, though. You could pay that out of cash too, out of the CIP.
Yeah.
If you're putting in another 500,000, that 40,000 probably would be smarter to just take it out of the CIP fund.
How much do you deplete the CIP?
It's at what, 1.6 now?
Somewhere around there.
If this year's going in, I think it's gonna be like a 1.6 million.
That sounds about right.
Yeah,
I think you just do the financial work to figure out what the
Right.
best way to do it is.
Yeah.
And what we can get and
you're probably not gonna get great numbers, great interest rates on 40,000. They like to have it as part of the package, and we're looking not to have packages anymore.
Just one less thing we said we'd do 3 years ago that we haven't done yet.
Right.
What, not have packages?
No, the sidewalk project,
Fix
this
this, fix the
is by
side.
public vote 3 years ago at town meeting, or going on. 3
I was
years.
there.
Yeah.
that was the new guy mistake. I was interchanging the two projects, thinking they were the same.
It's a biggie.
We'll get some sidewalks built next year.
Right.
But that's what I had as an overview for the admin budget. If anybody else has any questions or things they wanted to talk about. No,
Any other business? So I hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
great, Shirley, it's still 11:15.
Hey.
We're setting records this
Budget
year.
for bad.